with Mike, episode 36, with the first two-time guest of the show, Brandon. Thanks for being here, Brandon.
Thanks for having me on.
Today's freshest tea fact is Earl Grey was originally created in 1831 by Twinings for the Prime Minister at the time, the Earl Grey. So again, Brandon, welcome back to the show. How's it going?
It's going very well. Thanks for having me back on the show. I'm happy to be back.
And also, you get the honor of being the first two-time guest, which is super cool too.
Oh, awesome.
Awesome. So we're going to jump right into it, a little bit different because you've been here before. And we're going to start the show by talking about one of your ongoing projects, the Chainsaw Reindeer, which is a comic. Do you want to tell the audience a little bit about that project?
Yes, Chainsaw Reindeer is it's a one-shot comic book that I wrote. It's the first comic I made. I've self-published, a whole bunch of comics. This is the first one that got picked up by a bigger publisher, and so the reach with it is much greater. It's actually like as of last month, it's in comic stores all over the world, and it's been selling quite a bit and getting lots of feedback on it. It all started. I kind of I've been writing a lot of other comics, and I always put a lot of work into the stories and everything, but I started realizing there's so many comic books. You always have to read. It takes a while to get the story because they always have these kind of big 6 or 12 issue arcs, and these kind of longer stories, which is fine. I just kind of like got it in my mind. I'm like, I want to do the opposite. I want to do something that's, basically not really any story. It's just all, ridiculous violence and that kind of thing. And I almost did it as like a joke. In the back of my mind, I was like, no one's gonna read this. It's for my own amusement. So I wrote Chainsaw Reindeer, and basically the first kind of like 4 or 6 pages is a setup of the story, and then the rest of it is just him, the Chainsaw Reindeer, going around the world, killing people with a chainsaw, basically. And of course, as soon as it's done, that's the one that the publisher is interested in. That's the one that kind of gives me my big shot. So I guess it just shows that people might have a taste for something different, and sometimes rich characters and deep stories and all that is a good thing, but sometimes I think people just want something simple, and that's where Chainsaw Reindeer comes in. I think I even said in a lot of the the publicity I did for it, I said I made it to piss off English teachers. And I know there's a few reviews that I don't really read reviews, but I just sometimes I read the headlines, and there was a couple of them that were kind of ripping into it for that exact reason, right? They're calling it childish and all this stuff, but it's like, yeah, that's what I set out to do. But there's other people that were reviewing it, and I saw people on Twitter that were saying it's like, oh, the best comic ever made, and my favorite comic this year. And I was like, okay, like those are the people I'm making this for. There's a certain amount of people that are going to read it, and honestly, I think even the people that claim they don't like it, I think they actually did like it. They just don't want to admit that they like something so lowbrow, so they're trying to sound smart by ripping it apart. But it's easy to read. You sit down, you read the whole thing in like 2 minutes, and basically the story is he's one of Santa's reindeer. He's like a humanoid reindeer, and Santa Claus is an abusive drunk. And one day the reindeer just has enough, so he grabs a shotgun, kills Santa Claus, and then he grabs a chainsaw from the shed, and I even have a reference to Edmonton in there, that's where I'm from. So he goes into Edmonton. You see City Hall, and he's like killing a bunch of people there, and then he goes to kind of like every country or continent in the world, and is just slaughtering people, and he ends up in outer space, and it's quite crazy. But yeah, it's available out there, and if you Comixology, you can download it in a digital form, and it was picked up by Action Lab Comics. So if you go to the Action Lab website, it's you could pick it up there if it's already sold out at your comic book store.
Awesome. So you've sort of touched on it, but like, did it take you long to come up with the idea, or was this just one of those things that came to fruition very fast because it was just a random idea? Let's go.
It's it's kind of funny. Like the idea when it came to me, it was super fast. And just like I had that just that name kicking around in my head for a while, the Chainsaw Reindeer. I didn't know what it was other than just a reindeer with a chainsaw. When I decided, I was like, yeah, that's the one I'm going to do. All of a sudden, it just came flooding to me, and it was so fun to write because it's like, okay, he goes to Ireland, and it's like, who could he kill in Ireland? And it's like, how about a bunch of guys drinking in a pub? Okay, how about a leprechaun? Okay, that makes sense. And then he goes to England and he kills the Queen and one of those guards with the big furry hats. And,
Okay.
and then he goes to Scotland and kills a Loch Ness monster. So it just kind of became that, and it's just like, how about he goes to Egypt? And it's like, what could he do there? Like, he kills some camels. He like desecrates King Tut's tomb. It just became, a big thing like that. It was like so fun to write. As for actually getting it made, it ended up being the most expensive comic I've ever made. And it took just forever to get out. I think it was honestly like 3 years by the time we like started making it till it actually was released. We finished it and we actually signed with a different publisher. And I think it was like a week or so before it was supposed to be released, and the guy that owned it, so they sold the company, and then the new owners kind of like they changed everything, and so the deal kind of was like, basically moot at that point. And I didn't really like the way the new things are going, so I asked them, like, can I just get the comic back and I'll go somewhere else, and they agreed. And so I shopped it around a bit more, and Action Lab was interested, and it was just the whole new process. Like all the technical specs that they needed to submit the comic were a bit different. So I ended up having to re-letter the entire book. Lettering, for people who don't know, what's putting the word balloons on. It may not seem like a big deal, but it's, lettering is super important. Like if you have crappy lettering, it makes it like it can ruin the book. Unfortunately, Nick O'Gorman, who lettered the first version, he wasn't available to do it. So I had to get Chris Johnson out of Texas, who's a friend of mine. He ended up redoing the whole thing. And, finally we got it all done and went through this whole process and everything. And it was a learning experience too. Like, when I publish my own comics, like I have my own system, my own way of doing it, but also doing it with a bigger company. It was a learning experience. And there's so many things I'd never, thought of before, and there was a lot of stuff we had to redo, and they needed things changed, and not story wise, they were really good about that, but just things like the graphics on the cover and the interior cover and all this stuff like that. So it was kind of cool, and they were great to work with. Like, they were a really awesome company, and it was kind of cool because it's been my dream since I was in junior high to it's like going to a comic store, my comic books there. So it's kind of cool. I went to
that must be a cool but surreal moment.
Oh yeah, like I went to Variant Edition Comics here in Edmonton, and I was walking in. It's like, hey, there's my comic book I wrote on, like sitting on a shelf. And then I had people messaging me. I had a friend of mine in Australia, and he's like, yeah, I saw your comic there. And the colorist, PD Daedalus, who worked on who like colored Chainsaw Reindeer, he's from Poland, and he's like, yeah, I was in the comic store in Warsaw, and yeah, there it was on the shelf. And I was like, weird. It's like some idea that I had in my head a few years ago is now like in comic stores, like in all over the world. That is it's such a cool feeling, and a little bit of negative feedback, but overall it was overwhelmingly positive feedback. People are messaging me about it and just like telling me how awesome it is, and telling me I should do another one, and that's out of the realm of possibility that I'll do a second one, but it might be best just to leave it as the one crazy comic that we'll never follow up on, but we'll see what the future holds.
Nice. So you've mentioned several times people can buy it worldwide. How many countries can they buy it in?
You know what? I don't know. I'm not sure. Basically, anywhere with a comic store, I guess, or anywhere that ordered it. I'm sure like Canada and the US are probably the biggest ones. Probably the UK. And, I mean, if they have it in Poland and Australia, they probably have it in other European or New Zealand and stuff. I don't know. I honestly haven't even gotten any like sales figures yet. I'm sure at some point they'll send me something to let me know like how many we sold, or
how it's doing worldwide.
Because I spent a lot of money making it, so I'm hoping that I can at least be nice to make some money back on it and help cover that. But I'm just kind of happy that people were entertained by it.
So when you write projects and they're being well received in this particular case, do you kind of push the marketing on it, or are you more of a believer of letting your work stand for it on its own 2 feet, and then if people like it, then they really do, and then they're gonna make the purchase?
I do a bit of both. Like I always market everything, even just on social media, just throwing it out there always stirs up a little bit of attention. Action Lab, they did some of their own marketing too. I do like a press release and and stuff, and I'll do podcasts and interviews and that kind of thing. And so I push it as much as I can because people aren't gonna buy it if they haven't heard of it. And even when you go to a comic store, there's there's like freaking 100,000 comics sitting there. It's like it's like they might not even see yours, right? It's just one of a whole bunch of things. So, I try to have like standout artwork and stuff to draw them to it. But it's also, I'm always competing with, Marvel and DC, who are, way more famous. So, people have heard of Spider-Man, they heard of Batman. Like, it's so hard to be like, no, pick mine, this one you never heard of instead of that. Chainsaw Ranger, I think it just stood out because so many people are just going to see the cover, see that title, and be like, oh yeah, like I'm definitely checking this out. But yeah, I do a lot of marketing. Like I like putting my stuff out there, and it's just basically you have to get it in front of people, and it's worked quite a bit. For all my comics and stuff, and my films, I just just put it out there in front of people, and a certain amount of people are going to come and watch it, and then there's like it's kind of like anything. The majority of people are just not going to ever hear about it or pay attention. But a certain amount of people will pay attention, and then an even smaller amount will become like fans, and really like it, and then even a smaller amount will be like super fans, right? And like I have some people just like that read and buy everything I ever do. Some people just like watch every single film and love it. And obviously I want to grow those numbers.
Of course.
Which just comes to basically just trying to make sure everyone hears about it. Like I'll tell anyone who's willing to listen, and just like sharing artwork and just, stuff like that. And it really goes a long way for anyone else who's doing this kind of thing. Like I promote the living hell out of everything. And, it's up, sometimes up to the publisher to kind of do their part too. But, it's like, I don't need them to do everything, or I don't need to wait for them. It's like, I'll organize my own podcasts and, just whatever I can do to, just get it out there. And, every time I do a little push, it's like, oh, it gets a few more, people involved and people reading it. And, but it's like, yeah, eventually it'd be nice if it was so famous that it could just like, you don't really need to advertise a Spider-Man comic because it's, it's got a lot of readers already and it kind of advertises itself. But for now, I gotta work hard at it until I become a household brand, I guess.
Awesome. So for a couple of minutes, let's just talk a little bit about the structure of the comic. Is it quite fast paced for somebody that might want to read their first comic?
Yeah, Chainsaw Ranger is insanely fast paced. Like after the first few pages where it's kind of like a story, it's basically just, for a while it's like, each page is like a different country. There's like Canada, and then there's like England, and then after then it's like each panel it's just like Egypt, Australia, like and it's just him doing ridiculous stuff. There's very little dialogue other than people screaming and him, killing people in horrible ways. And then, like there's like, countries are sending armies after him and he's just like destroying all these armies. And it's a very light read because, sometimes I like reading a deep comic that takes a lot of thought and stuff, but sometimes it's like, I want to just, something very light. Yeah, sometimes like you pick it up, read it in like 2 minutes, and it's like, I'm gonna read that again. That was so cool, and that's kind of exactly where like it hit. That exactly what I was trying to do because people were kind of commenting on that. It's just like, oh, you don't got to read, you don't got to follow the story for a year, like an ongoing story. It's like it's just one thing. It begins and ends in a short amount of time. It's extremely fast paced. Like the artwork. Art's done by Carlos Trigo, who's an artist out of Spain. He draws my comic Ghoul Squad as well. But yeah, the art where it just jumps off the page, like it's just so nice looking and it's colored well, and it's it's really fun. Even once in a while, I'll just pick it up and like look through it again and just kind of a trip down memory lane. And yeah, I've got a lot of even people that don't really like comics. You can tell they're just kind of just a smile on their face as they're looking at it. So it's not going to be everyone's thing. Like if you're particularly basically if you don't like violence and that kind of thing, like it's like comic book violence, you're gonna hate it because it's it's kind of gratuitous, but it's in such a way it's over the top that it's almost not offensive, and that's why I don't get why some people had a problem with it. Like it's not realistic in the slightest. Like it's so ridiculous and over the top, but it's a hell of a lot of fun. So I definitely recommend just Google it and go buy it and send me a message and let me know what you think.
Awesome. So let's switch gears a little bit and talk about another project that you're currently working on. I'm Haunted, which is a film / web series, right?
Yeah, it's a found footage series, and basically it's in the end it's going to be a full length movie. I'm just releasing it in kind of small, like 2-minute long chunks. It's a different way of doing it. I wasn't sure if it would work or not. I was just like, I'll try it and see if I'm not sure. It's like is watching it in little tiny micro episodes going to be more popular, or are people just going to want to wait and watch the entire thing when it's done? So it's kind of an experiment just to see how it works. I'm getting a very good reaction to it though. Like a lot of people are messaging me and saying they love it. It's basically the story is this young woman thinks that her apartment is haunted, so she starts a video blog to kind of just update people every day on not only the creepy stuff happening in her apartment, but also just stuff going on in her life. And of course, as the series progresses, it kind of gets more intense, and the haunting stuff kind of gets worse. And so 62 episodes overall. It started on November 1st, so I think we're on. It's not every single day, but it's almost every day. Sometimes there's a day or two in between. So I think we're on episode 23. I think launches tonight, and it goes until about January 7th, I think. So there's 62 episodes overall. And then when that's done, it's all going to be put together. Although I did kind of run into a problem because, sometimes it's hard to judge while you're shooting it how long it's going to be. So I edited all these episodes kind of one at a time. And then when I put them all together, and I was thinking it was going to be, I'm like, if it's too short, we could, just film additional stuff. But it's a little over 2.5 hours long altogether, which is way too long for a found footage movie. So I'm like, so basically I have to cut like an hour, probably an hour and 10 minutes or so out of it. So what I'm kind of doing is I'm kind of seeing which episodes are the most popular, and this kind of the feedback I'm getting to see kind of like what people like, what they don't like so much. And I'll just kind of use that as a basis for the film, which is kind of good because, it means I can keep all the best stuff in the movie. So,
all the people already like.
Yeah, so if you guys condense it and keep all the most exciting parts, it should hopefully turn out very well. It's kind of funny because I don't particularly like found footage movies, and I always kind of, I never really intended to make one. It's, that's not a genre I really cared a lot about. But I started thinking, the idea came to me, and it was also, it's a way to basically make a very affordable film. Because trying to raise money to do movies is difficult, and we're doing other projects we have on the go that we're trying to raise like 6 figures for, and it's like it's such a hard work. And I was like, well, I don't want to sit around waiting while we're raising money for other things. I want to do something now that we could get something out there. So if we do this found footage thing, like the entire thing is shot on a cell phone or a laptop. And so, basically just like we didn't need that big of a crew, and the actor, there's not that many actors in there. So I think it was about 5 days total. We shot the entire thing, and then we just broke it down into little bits. And so yeah, it's also just, the episodes are uploaded to YouTube, and it's a way just to get basically my name and my content out there kind of every single day in front of people. So they're constantly seeing it and, being reminded of it. So it's kind of, good, like marketing that wise. And it's also just, a cool little story, and we'll see how it goes. Like, I'm still not sure what the, reception is going to be to it. Like when it's released as a full movie. I might even kind of juggle things around and, move the order a bit, just to make it different. If it's a success and people like it, I might even do another one, because as we were doing it, it turned out to be kind of fun. There's this, there's always pressure, just time pressure and everything on movies. Whereas this one, like a lot of it was just me and Elizabeth Chamberlain, the main actor in it. it was just the two of us shooting the stuff, and a lot of it we kind of make it up as we go along. Like I had a script and everything, but sometimes we think of something and it's like, oh, what if we were doing this? And
then you try it out.
So we kind of that, and there was just there weren't the time constraints on it. So I was like, you know what, like I could come up with another cool story and kind of do it in the same fashion. But it's funny, anyone watching, if you watch the YouTube episodes, you probably even notice this background behind me, because a lot of the movie was filmed with her sitting in this exact chair. So sometimes she'd be sitting here, and then the door there would just kind of like open on its own, or the closet would move, and that kind of thing. So it's and another thing that I found interesting about it too is when I first wrote it, there's a lot of stuff just from her, her work life, dealing with her family and her friends and getting a job and all that kind of thing. And I wasn't sure. I was like, is that going to be like boring, or is that like interesting? And so I had a few people read the script, and they were like, oh my God, like, no, that all that stuff like with her, like that's so important. Like I want to know what's going on with her best friend. And they seemed to really be drawn to just the, kind of the more just the drama going on in her life as much as the actual haunting stuff. So I was like, okay, so kind of there's a lot of it too that's just kind of like her dealing with her friends, and she's arguing with her mom, and she's trying to get a job, and she's broke, and arguing with another friend, and this kind of things like that seem to appeal to that certain demographic. So there's going to be a lot of that in there. And then, of course, there's a lot of, just the scary stuff, too. And as it progresses, it kind of starts off slowly. There's, little bits of stuff here and there happening. They're like the scary stuff. But it starts getting more and more intense as it goes along. And, I mean, we're not even halfway. It seems like it's been out for a while now. It's been out for a few. We're not even halfway through the story yet. So it's gonna get really intense. So, yeah, just go to, if you just go to YouTube, and you can either just, look up I'm Haunted, or it's on the Higher Universe channel, which is my channel. If you just go there, or just look it up on Facebook, you can find it. If you want, you can, just start watching all the episodes, or you can wait till the entire thing's done if you want to watch it all in one day, kind of binge watch it.
Right.
But yeah, I'd like to hear what anyone thinks. You can subscribe to the channel too. I recommend people do that. It helps me out, and also make sure that you get the notifications each day as the episodes come out.
Yes, it'll definitely be interesting to see how many people are watching it like in little chunks, and then who's waiting till the end so they can just like binge watch it as like a whole piece.
It's kind of interesting too, because like sometimes I'll put, like, when I finish one of my short films or something, you put it on YouTube, and it has like a little you have this spike where it's kind of new and everyone will watch it, but eventually it'll taper off. Mm-hmm. And then it's kind of like, it won't really grow anymore. The odd one, like I'm in love with a dead girl, which is kind of my first, quote, real short film. It's kind of an anomaly, and it's just like, every day it gets, 200 views. So it's just, constantly growing. It's been like 2 or 3 years. It hasn't slowed down. Most of them kind of like taper off pretty quickly, but with I'm Haunted, even the early ones, they're kind of all just like slowly building up. It's like every day they're getting more views. I figured it's like, after the first week or so, like, the people that are going to watch the ones that have already watched it. So, kind of new people are coming along all the time. And it's like, they're all slowly growing. So it's, and I appreciate, obviously, like, you could share the videos and everything too. I want to get as many people as possible to kind of get some enjoyment out of this. So if you're like a horror fan and stuff, and just like feedback, right? Just commenting on it, things like that. I like hearing what people think.
Helpful stuff. Yeah.
Whether it's positive or negative, it doesn't really matter to me. I prefer people like it, but as long as they're involved and they're commenting on it, it's like they're watching it, and I'm getting something out of it. So it's definitely an interesting story, and I've had, like, even when I wrote the script, I was just unsure. It's like, I like this, but it's like, is this going to like appeal to anyone? It's totally different story. Like, basically half the movie is, probably more than half, is just her sitting there talking to her phone or the camera. But people really responded. Everyone from the actors, they read it and they're like, oh yeah, like I like this, I'm on board. And we had some investors and stuff that just read the script and they're like, yeah, this is really good. We'll help you out. So it's just kind of exciting just to, it's kind of cool that I just tried something new. Like, I always kind of swore I'd never do a found footage film. I just don't particularly like them. But then I was like, oh, well, if I got an idea for one, it's like, yeah, I may as well try to do it, then I'll do it my own way.
Nice. And for those people that don't know much about the industry, what's a found feature film?
Found footage.
Or
It's
found,
basically movies like Paranormal Activity, which this is kind of similar to like Blair Witch, anything that it's supposed to be real. Um, so you basically people are talking to the camera, like they know that there's a camera there, and it's I think it comes from Blair Witch kind of thing, how it's supposed to be. This was real footage, and someone found it and edited it together to show this story. So it's not actually real, and we filmed the entire thing ourselves. It's basically a normal movie, but it's done. It's supposed to be done somewhat amateurly, so they didn't have movie lights and movie cameras and a crew there. It's just people filming their own little thing. So so there's quite a few. There's a little like a mini kind of industry of those kind of films, and there's a lot of fans too. There's a lot of people that contacted me like about I'm Haunted, and they just they love found footage movies, and they'll watch anything they can get their hands on. So there is like a little bit of a fan base for it. I'm not sure how big it is. I guess I'll find out when the movie comes out. So I mean, it's just there's a lot of them. What I've been hearing from people that there's some good ones, but there's so many of them that are just like done so badly, and that could just be where my distaste for them comes in. I've tried watching them, and I'm just like, yeah, I can't watch this. The first couple Paranormal Activities were I kind of liked, and then they seem to get progressively worse. But I think it can be done well, and that's the thing too is since it's supposed to be real and it looks kind of more real, there's potential for it to be scarier. So and we were still limited by budget. Like we spent a little bit of money on it, but most of the effects were just stuff that we were doing off screen. It was just like a lot of it was just me doing the stuff.
That's cool too. Like, because then you get really invested into it.
Yeah, and
this is a multi-million-dollar film where you've got probably way more technology and equipment to be able to do some of the things. So whilst you're physically moving the stuff to do it, you're a little less hands-on.
Yeah, it's exactly, and and honestly, like CGI, especially like over the top, gratuitous CGI is just not scary at all. So even just those subtle things, like in this one, like everything's just kind of so subtle. A lot of it's like, even just her looking off screen, like she heard something. It's just those little moments where it's like that's kind of creepy, or you hear something, and so there's towards the end there's a few things where you get a bit bigger surprises, but for the most part it's all very subtle things, and even just things going on in her daily life. There's just something about it, like that's a little it's kind of unnerving, right, when you put the whole thing together. So I'm just kind of going for more of those like subtle scares, and I hope there's like an audience of people that are just kind of sick of like CGI freaking ghosts and monsters all the time, and it's like I've seen everything that that can be seen. It's not scary anymore. So I wanted to go for something just it's just a bit different, and it's a bit more thought provoking, and it's more subtle. But I'm hoping people are entertained by it anyway.
That's fine. So as a writer and also a director, and also you do a lot of your own editing. Do you find it difficult to watch back the work that you're creating?
No, not really. No, I don't find it difficult. I'm not too harsh of a critic of my own work. I know a lot of people watch their own stuff and don't like it. I mean, like I always see everything wrong with it. Like Hot Box, which was like my last like full feature length movie. I'll watch that, and there's this kind of like little parts. I'm like, man, I wish I did that differently, and that kind of thing. But for the most part, I kind of like what I did. It's just I can make it as best as I can, and so I kind of like watching things back sometimes. And so I'm not too hard on myself. I don't find it difficult. The only thing that's difficult about it is, especially when you're editing your own thing, is like you've seen it so many times that it kind of it loses its meaning. And even with Hot Box, by the end, I'm just like, is this even funny? Like it's like I've seen it 1,000 times. It's kind of lost all meaning, and so it's you kind of like you can't be objective about it anymore. And so it's kind of like is this funny? It's like, should I cut this joke out? I don't know if it's funny. And then people will be like, no, that joke's funny. Leave it in. It's like, okay. And then once you see it in the theater with a bunch of people and everyone's laughing, then it's like, oh, okay, I was right. This was I'm Haunted. It's hard too, because it's like, well, I wrote it. I was there like every day. Like I staged all the things myself. So it's like I don't find it scary, and it's like I don't know if other people are going to find it scary. It's like maybe they will, maybe they won't, but they might still just find it entertaining even if it's not scary. Like I just it's hard to see because I can only see and judge through my own eyes, and I have a different perspective because like I created the story
in the
so
beginning.
Like,
yeah,
it's like someone who's never seen this before. They don't know what's going to happen, and even things too. Like I know the end of the story. I know how it all fits together. So when I mention, I know how something's going to pay off later, whereas other people don't. So it's like I don't know. Are they confused? Do they not know what's going on, or am I kind of leading them to a red herring that's going to surprise later, or can they figure it out? There's a lot of things like that I just you just can't know. So it's like as for my writing, like I write so much. I'm constantly improving. So I'll go back and I'll find a script that I had written, say a year or more ago, and I'll read it and I'll be like, oh, like I can do so much better. So I'll do another pass at it, just make some improvements. And a lot of times that's the tipping point where all of a sudden I'll be able to sell or option it. It's just like it wasn't quite there yet. I thought it was really good. It wasn't quite good enough. So I'm always going back and improving on things. With film, it's a bit different because like Hotbox, it's finished. I can't go tinkering around with it again. It's like it is what it is. It's done. So I know a lot of people just like they hesitate on releasing their films just because they're constantly messing around with it, changing little things. Whereas I'm more just like, yep, this is as good as I can get it, and try to get it out there as soon as possible. It's like I'd be better off just starting on something new and getting more stuff out there than just kind of nitpicking at the same thing over and over again. But overall, to answer your question, I like watching my own stuff. And it's not just a vanity thing. It's just like, all the work that went into it. And it's, kind of brings back some nostalgic moments and just seeing like, if I haven't watched it in a while, it's kind of seeing it with a new eye. And there's like little things I didn't notice before. And it's just, watching the actors and just like, and some of it I just realized like how good it is. It's like, man, I remember like
that you didn't see in the moment.
Like we had like an hour to do this whole scene and we were so rushed and, things are going wrong and, and it's just like, it actually came out pretty good. It's kind of good to go back and think about things like that.
And so just to kind of wrap up, would you say that overall you're quite free flowing and you like being able to adapt as you go, but not overstretching the overall process so that it becomes saturated and you kind of trust your gut when you in your thought process?
Yeah, you kind of like, especially when you're like on set filming something, you kind of have to do that. I don't think that'll ever change, even if we're doing like way higher budget things. It's probably just something you have to deal with. But yeah, every film, there's always just something happens, and, in Hotbox, you're dealing just like weather problems, and it's like, the whole movie takes place in one night, but we shot it over a couple weeks. And, some days it's so warm that the snow's melting. Other days there's like blizzard. And so it's just, it's like, whatever, just deal with it. And, things come up and it's, like, oh, the smoke detector goes off and, we can't figure out how to turn it off. We were shooting in the university one time and some sort of security alarm went off. And it was like a freaking hour. This like stupid thing was, it's like, well, what do we do? We can't film. So, we have people going around trying to find security, get them to turn it off. And, just like things go wrong and you just deal with it. And it's like, okay, well, while this is going on, let's go shoot outside, we'll do those scenes first.
Make the best use of your time with the people.
Yeah. So you just make things work. And like I try to work super fast, especially with my writing, a lot of people just like, they work on the same script so much. And whereas I'm just like, I write a script. It's like I get it out there, start marketing it, trying to sell it, and I sell a lot of them. And then, I'm on to the next one. And it kind of takes some of the pressure off too, because, there's less of that, like, this is my baby type of feeling. And it's like, and it helps with the rejection too. It's, getting constant rejection on the script. And it's like, well, it doesn't feel so bad because like, I'm already on like 2 scripts after that. So it's kind of like, okay, if it doesn't sell,
eventually when you get news of it, right?
Yeah. And it's like, even like pretty much every day I get some sort of rejection because I'm constantly pitching stuff. So I got some yesterday. I'll probably get some sort of, rejection email today. But at the same time, like I have so many scripts that I'm writing that I'll get something good too. And someone will be like, hey, we really like the script. Do we want to option it? It's like, okay. Or I'll sell a short film or, I'll get hired to write something. And then it's like, okay. So then if I get a rejection, it's like, yeah, whatever. Like I'm kind of too busy anyway, so I'm doing this other stuff. And then and then I'll go back and be like, okay, this one's 2 years old and hasn't sold yet, so I'll go and I'll rewrite it and kind of make it better, pitch it again, and sometimes then it'll sell. And so as long as you're constantly working on something, and I can put out a huge amount of content, and the more I put out, then the more I get, basically the more I get hired. So even the short films, they may not make money themselves, but people watch them, or they just see them somewhere on Facebook, and it's like, hey, I need someone to write a horror movie, and then they'll see it and they'll be like, hey, I'll contact that guy, and they'll message me like, hey, we're looking for someone to write a horror movie, interested? And then it's like, hey, I got another job, and I can just kind of keep the whole thing going. And so eventually I would like to, it's like I make a film and that film itself becomes profitable, whereas right now it's kind of any money I make goes back into making new stuff. And I'm making a lot, but it's a struggle every day, just being an indie filmmaker in Edmonton. Like, there's not a lot of us that do this full time, and it's stressful, and it's just it's like as much heartache as there is the triumph and stuff. But overall it's fun, and I'm meeting so many great people, and making cool stuff. And I hope that just everyone I'm working with, as we go down the line years from now, it's like we all just kind of like rise together, and it's just like next thing you know, it's just like, hey, remember 10 years ago when we were doing all these like low budget things? And it's like, yeah, now we're doing some pretty big things. So I think there's like exciting things in the future. It's just going to take like an insane amount of hard work for everyone, and and this job isn't for everyone. Like a lot of people all the time approaching me about like they kind of want to, it's like, I want to be a writer, or like how do I make it happen? And it's like sometimes I just like, do you know what you're in for? You know how much work this is going to take? Like it takes a lot of work. And so but that's a way it kind of tests out people that aren't really, if their heart's not into it, they're not going to stick with it a long time. They'll try to make a few things and then they'll kind of leave, and you quickly see who the people that are in it for real are. And it's like, yeah, they stick with it through the hard times. And so yeah, it's fun to be in Edmonton. There's a great group of people. Like I met so many. I've only been doing this a few years, and I just met so many people that I consider my friends now. And it's just kind of like, it's just like, wow, there's actually cool stuff being made here, and hopefully we can just get more of it out there.
Also, got any closing thoughts on either Chainsaw Reindeer or the film / web series I'm Haunted?
Chainsaw Reindeer. If you're into comics and you want to check it out, go to the Action Lab website. You can buy it there, or it's available on Comixology, which is the digital comics platform. For I'm Haunted, just go to YouTube and look up I'm Haunted or Higher Universe, and we have a Facebook page too. You can go like the page, and almost every night at 7 p.m. is when we launch the new episodes, so you can watch those, subscribe to the channel, and feel free to follow me on Twitter or Facebook. I'm just under my own name, Brandon Rhiness. And I always like hearing what people think, especially if they like something I did. So if someone likes it, message me, let me know. A lot of times people watch things and then they don't think to reach out. I'm always wondering what people think. So message me and tell me what you liked, and I would love to hear from people.
Awesome, man. And so thanks for being on Tea with Mike, episode 36.
Yeah, thanks for having me on. This was great.
Awesome, guys. That was Tea with Mike, episode 36 with Brandon. I'll post some links of his work when I post this video in the description. Have a great rest of your day, everyone. Bye.